This is the Matters of Influence podcast, creating awareness and alignment today to become your best self tomorrow. With your hosts, Debbie Frapp and Terry Foster Nowland.
And we're live.
Finally.
Again. I know. Whoa. Holy cow. Hey, we want to welcome everybody back to joining us too. I know you probably thought that we disappeared, and we haven't. I think we've done more coaching and more training and more Zooms than in since June, which was our last podcast, which is what we're going to talk about today. And so ironic. And we're back. We're back, and we are so excited that you are joining us. And we're really grateful for everybody that has become part of the Matters of Influence community. And we really are.
We know you're there. We know you're there, and we're seeing you on Facebook. And we've had a few texts. Where are you? What's going on? Where are your podcasts? And they're all still there. We just have new ones, and we have a newfound energy going into 2021. And I'm excited for today, just so we can talk about 2020 and that movement, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, so one of the things that we've done is we took a look at, 2020 was our second year of doing the podcast, and we took a look at basically the year in review through our podcasts.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because our very last podcast, 2020, was vision. And we did that in June. In June, we talked about vision, and 2020. It's just like, how much more clarity could you ask for? And so we purposely ended with that. And I think part of it, I know for me, Terry, we've got a lot that we've, I think, learned through the year, and that's kind of what we're going to do today. And for me, I don't know that, I think I've gained more clarity and more in my vision as a result of what I've learned and what I've experienced through 2020.
Yeah, I think it's okay to know and to think, and a lot's popped up.
Yep.
2020 that for me personally, I wouldn't have taken the time to experience. When out the drive time, when you take out where you think you've got to go and be all the time. And for me specifically, these last almost 6 weeks now of not being able to drive because of a right foot surgery, that really pulled it all in for me, right? Yeah. And when you start getting that time back, it's interesting how your brain kicks in and helps you realize what might be hiding back there in your world that's creeping in and causing you to rethink.
Absolutely.
For the next year or the next decade in your life, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's dive in. Let's talk about, we've got some great questions that we want to introduce to you guys around reflecting. And we were talking about one of our mentors, Terry, John Maxwell, and talk a little bit about what we've both learned from him in this area of reflecting.
And I know some of you that listen to us are John Maxwellites, let's say. And I was thinking, my husband and I were talking about this the other day. I was thinking about the importance of people like him in so many lives. Like, I'm thinking of the leaders, Debbie, that you and I follow now, because they were following John
Maxwell. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Don't connect it all together. And I could name those names, and it's where you and I get a lot of energy from.
Yep.
And so what John taught us years ago, and my husband and I practice this now. I hate to say that we haven't done it yet this year. That's next week. Is where you look at your calendar, you literally flip back through the year, and you reflect on the things that poured into your life, and the things that possibly took away from or that didn't make an impact. And it's called the elimination exercise, right? It's you either eliminate something, you create time to put something in that is going to support what you want in the next years. Or you continue doing the things that matter.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
For an example, Debbie, you and I have attended the Catalyst conference for the past few years together, right?
Yes, we have.
And I don't know if it's because we just enjoy being together and having fun. I don't think that's just the only reason. I think it's outside of our norm. And when we go, we get something big. And this past year, we didn't get to do that live.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't get to do that live.
So that's something I want on my calendar every year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I can speak on a personal level of that. I've got 2 beautiful grandbabies and a son and daughter-in-law that live in Alaska. And ever since they moved up there, I've got to see them at least 2, 3, 4 times a year. And I went over 400 days as a result of COVID, not being able to see them. And luckily I'm back from a trip in which I got to do that. And so even that was different, right? So it's not just in our work lives that we didn't get to everything that the way that we go about our days has changed. I was somebody that was traveling 2, sometimes 3 times a month, depending upon what time of year it was, to basically it was halted. And I think I have flown here recently, and it's different. It's different. It's a whole different experience. And even the way that we connect with people is different. I mean, we've got a mask on. Luckily, we don't have a mask on here so people can see us smiling. And yet, think about how much of what we present to the world is now being covered as the result of a mask, right? So I think we can take all of these lessons and kind of reflect on 2020. So what would be a couple of questions that you would encourage people to ask themselves, and maybe do the exercise with a spouse as you and David do? What would some of those questions be?
Well, those first few questions are, what would I repeat? What would I remove? And that's all based on what your goals are going to be, right? What you choose or wish to achieve. I've got this, I told you, I've got this great list of 21 questions. And one of my favorites that's on here, not because it's the most important, but who is the wealthiest person that you spent time with in 2020? And what did you learn about money from them?
Ooh. Wow. Great question.
No, and one of the triggers that I notice when people say, "Oh, I don't do this for the money. I'm not in this for the money." 12 years ago, that wouldn't have been something to make me go, Now it does, because of the financial thermostat change, right?
Yep. Right.
Yes, we're all doing something for money, even if we're doing passive income where we don't work.
Absolutely.
I think that money question, I was going to take it out and I left it in there because it is important, not as a comparison, but what I learned from them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great question. Great question. I think 2020 was challenging. And I think this is another one of my favorites is, what are the 3 things that you accomplished in 2020, even though you may not have set out to do it, right? It was not even on your radar.
Yeah.
And what I like about that question is, because it would be very easy with everything that has happened in 2020 to not think that the year, like some people are just like ready to be done with it. Okay.
Oh,
and yet, gosh, what a waste it would be if we didn't take time to say, man, what did I accomplish that I didn't even know I had set out to accomplish? Because it's a way that we can actually celebrate the year and take something positive away from it. There is no doubt that we will remember this year for our lifetime. And
I hit the rewind button. Let's start with that question. Forget my question. That can be second, but let's start with the wins.
Okay.
You've nailed it. I mean,
yeah,
that should have been the first question that I threw out there. So thank you for bringing that up. We got what we did right. Well,
and I was talking with somebody this morning, Terry, and one of the things that we thought about is, what if we collected those stories from people?
Oh,
right. What if we could collect, like, what were the gifts of 2020? What were the things that you accomplished? What was the gift to, we've got there's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of pain in this world. And as we navigate through it, though, I think we can navigate in a powerful way. It reminds me, I'm going to share this. I did not get permission to share it, so I'm not going to share who wrote it, because and hopefully they're going to listen and they're going to see it. And this is what it said, and it was like, what if 2020 was really all about perfect vision? I'm going to use the word vision. We're all carriers. What we carry, others around us will catch. And what we can either be carriers of faith or of fear.
You read that to me twice, and we're more worried about what we're going to catch than what we're yes.
Absolutely. What are we carrying, right? What are we carrying? And as I go into 2021, I want to be a carrier of light. I want to be a carrier of making sure that people know how much they are appreciated, loved, respected, the whole thing. That's what I want to be a carrier of, right? That's a choice, by the way. And we have the one thing that 2020 has not taken from any of us is choice.
I wrote that down. So if I looked like I'm writing, I am.
Yeah. It's just great. So there's a great opportunity, right?
On that question, everybody, I think that could be a question you write down. Like, what is it that I choose to carry?
Mm-hmm.
Your word that you're waiting to find. What do I choose to carry into 2021?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you know what? There's probably some things, though, that we need to choose to let go of too.
Absolutely.
As we go into 2021,
Absolutely.
right? What are some of the, in fact, that was another question. What do I need to let go of and just leave it in 2020? Right. Yeah. And I think those are really great ways of reflecting for the year, so that we know, how do we want to take this year? This was 365 days of our life, of which our days are numbered. We know that. We just don't know what the number is.
That's right.
And it wasn't a waste. And so how can we take it and let it not be a blur? Let it not be blur. Vision 2020. I'm just telling you, there's so much with just looking at 2020 and vision. And I think it's just ironic that that's where we ended. Our last podcast is on vision. And now here's our new clarity that we're bringing forward.
And what was the first podcast of the year?
Oh, the very first podcast of the year was Emotions Do Matter. Emotions do matter, right? So we were just like, okay, yeah, no problem. And then we started talking about what's next matters.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
This was all pre-COVID,
pre-COVID. And February, you ready for this one? Purpose matters. That was February. Purpose matters. Mm-hmm. And then we had this amazing guest, Dave Jenks, because we had gone to the last training event. Probably the last time you and I have seen each other in person was in February of 2020. Yeah. Okay. And Dave Jenks was our guest on The Journey Matters.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So it was as if we were being like guided somehow. And I do believe that we are. And yet it was just, as you put the year together, it left clues, it left a path. Yeah.
Thanks for intuitive spirits, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And we all have those. So it's paying attention.
We've got everything we need. We just have to tap into it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I wrote down, this won't surprise you. Who is the role model for the healthiest version of myself that I want to become? Just when you think you're healthy, like there's so much about healthy. It's not physical health, it's mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
absolutely.
Is flat health, and my health doesn't look like your health, nor my husband's health, nor my daughter's health, right? The version of myself. So who is that, and who do I need to seek out for that?
Great question. Great question.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I have, and we posted this, and it was one of the blog posts that I recently did around. You and I have done the practice of selecting a word for the year, and we've done that. I was trying to go back. I know I could remember all the way back to 2016, and I know I've been doing it way longer than that, right? And one of the things though that it brought attention to is how that too has had a pathway.
Oh, yeah.
And yet my word in 2020 was creator. And so here was the question: what did I create in 2020?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What did I create in 2020? I created opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What else did I create? So I think we often look at creating as something like something physical that we do, right? I'm going to do this painting, or I'm going to do something else. And yet creation comes from so many different things. We can look at, what did I create? What are the seeds that I planted that will create something way beyond? So both of you and I are both grandparents, our best titles, right? Gaga and Gigi.
Yep.
And what are the seeds that we're planting with them as a creator? So another great question is, what did you create in 2020?
It is a great question. I think just going back to your word, I'm going to laugh about, I'm not even going to go there. I'm laughing about my word, and I'm going to go back and analyze that. But just going back to your word, number one, the path that you talked about, that you've taken, and what words have meant. But going back to last year's word that you set for yourself, not knowing anything that was going to happen, and what came out of that, right?
Right. Yeah. So we've been doing words instead of resolutions, right? Because resolutions seem to be short term, and having a focus for a word for the year really, there's something. It's kind of fun to just kind of watch, just by focusing on the word, to watch how it unfolds and what you begin to pay attention to and what you begin to focus on.
What it becomes your true north.
It does. Yep.
Values, right? When you're coaching someone and you say, this decision you're trying to make, is that aligning up with your values? Let's read your top 3 values, right?
Absolutely.
You go back to values session that you've done, and you're so doing that with people.
Yep.
And it really helps you go back and is this decision I'm making, or that I want to do, aligning with what I really want?
Yeah, absolutely.
Letting, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I realized too, Debbie, looking at my year so far, that the last time I really, really got totally focused on the next 10 years was about 12 years ago. Oops. And
there's some good awareness.
And the cool thing, when you look that far out, and one of the questions I wrote down about that, or I've got circled about that, has to do with that. And that's a personal thing, of course, but the things I wanted 12 years ago happened. Some happened as early as 5. And so the power that you really don't understand about what you put out in the universe.
Yeah.
And I want
absolutely
you to share your 2020 and hindsight theology around that. What you really put out there is important. So I wrote down, or circled, basically, what goal have I had over the past decade of my life that continues to get pushed year after year.
Boy, that's a question.
Because there's something that I'm overlooking, which means I go back and research. And yet, again, I may realize it, and I'm choosing just to look at all the good, not what I've pushed. But how many pushed it, and why? And maybe it to be a goal is why.
And it could be. And yet, what a great reflective kind of question to ask yourself. So as we kind of wrap up this kind of vision reflection of 2020, what are some, and anything else that you do in your practice, and just as you get ready to kind of wind down a year and start a new year. Anything else that you can share with those that are matters of influence?
The things that I do that I started, actually, this will be my 3rd year. A few years ago, I started ordering a planner that I could keep my appointments in, but also keep my goals in, which I know you draw beautifully in yours. And I have to add to that I could take to church Sunday or Saturday or whenever I choose to go, and that I could journal in.
Yep.
And what I do is I go through that journal, and I'm looking at mine right now going, I can't believe that the ribbons have moved this far in such a short period of time, right? Every time at church, when I move that ribbon, it represents another week of time, right?
Yeah.
I go back through every week that I journaled, and I pick out the highlights of what I wrote. In the back of this particular day timer, as you might call it, are many pages. And so I just go into the back and I start writing all the ahas from every week. And it brings to mind things that are emotional. It brings things to mind that maybe I was hurting.
Yeah.
It helps me see how I got past things I was worried about. Yes, I worry. Things I'm thankful for, gratitude, and it helps bring all that back as a reflection. So I'm looking forward to having quiet time the next couple of weeks before the first of the year in completing that exercise.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. And
one favorite thing to do.
Yeah. I love that. And it's such a great way to remember. I'm inconsistent with it. And maybe that's one of the things I need to start as I go into 2021. So is to be more consistent, because there's so much of our lives that we think, oh, well, I'll remember that. And it's not the event itself that we want to remember. It's like what you said. How did I get through that? What was I feeling in the moment? Right. And what all of those kind of things are not necessarily the things that we recall. We recall the moment, but we don't really bring the whole experience to life. And so I really love that as a way of journaling and what the gift of journaling is. Well,
a friend that we share, however, I see her more as one of the best coaches I've ever had. And you see her as definitely a friend, Coach Mandy.
Yes. Yes.
She helped me release the guilt of not journaling daily. Because when you tell me, Terry, you need to journal, the way my brain thinks is, oh my gosh, it's a thing I have to do every day.
I have to do it. Yeah.
Go. And so I started doing it at least weekly. Yep. And then I start getting a little down or something, I start writing more. And the biggest goal that I have for that is not for me to just reflect, but the day that I'm gone. And like Gary Keller says in his poem that was so readily brought to me about life this past week. And this is what stood out. I've been to Quantum Leap like how many times? 12 or something like that. Mm-hmm. They were reading that story out loud and I wasn't looking at it. And a life worth living is the life that you have after you're gone.
Oof. Wow.
One of the reasons I journal is so that my kids will be able to experience things that they remember, that they don't understand I thought was important, or be something about them that I wrote in there, right?
Yeah.
Helps that dash that they don't understand in between where I started and where I ended.
Oh, man, that's cool.
So
that's cool.
What about you?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think part of it is for me, I just like the space of giving myself the space. Right. I've often teased people and I'm so much better than what I have been. I can work a lot. Right. And I think we all can. And it's not, and I have a great work ethic. My dad gave me that work ethic and yet to just be. And I love to spend there's something about just connecting and just enjoying the life that you do have and just being grateful. So mine is really one of gratitude. And I'm even grateful right now that I got a brand new puppy that some of you may be able to hear in the background, and that life is not perfect. And yet it's perfect the way it is in this moment.
Yeah.
And it's exactly where I need to be. So that's really, and you know, sometimes I'm selecting my word for the year. I already have mine moving forward. And so I think it'd be fun to just kind of really digest that, and how do I see that word playing out for the year? Yeah. So there we go.
But I think too is what were we talking about just a little while ago? If they wanted to, having people send us their.
Oh yes.
They could email us. They could post them on our Facebook page. What would be the best thing?
You know what? Either of those they can do, but yeah, I'd love to collect the stories of from those who listen to our podcast on what did you accomplish? You know, what was the gift of 2020, or what did you accomplish that you didn't intend on accomplishing? Like whatever that story is, what's your story from 2020, your celebration story? You could send it to us on the Facebook page. You can private message us. You can email us. You can contact us through the Matters of Influence website, and we would love to collect those stories and see what success. And I don't know what we'll end up doing with it. So just give us permission to share those. So don't send it unless you want us to enjoy those and maybe share some of those successes. So
love it.
I guess we will wrap up for this episode. We want to thank you for listening to the Matters of Influence podcast. And oh my gosh, we hope that you'll subscribe to this and share it with your friends on social media. Again, more information on us and this podcast, join our Facebook page. We've already mentioned that. And then our information site is mattersofinfluence.com. And we've got some exciting new links and pieces of that we're going to be rolling out in 2021 as well. So there we go. All right. With that, anything else, Terry? Signing off?
Signing off. Is there anything else I'm supposed to say?
I think we're good.
Communicate, pass it on, and there's more to come in 2021.
There we go. All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.